Jai Jagannath. In my previous video, I gave a brief introduction about cell, like what is cell, types of cell, like prokaryotic and eukaryotic cell, and also what is the difference between the plant cell and animal cell. Now, in my current video, I will be discussing about three major things of a cell, like plasma membrane, nucleus, and cytoplasm. Let's begin the topic with plasma membrane. Let's talk about the plasma membrane. The plasma membrane is also known as cell membrane, and it is a delicate layer which covers the cell and present in both prokaryotic cell and eukaryotic cell. It is an elastic and selectively permeable membrane. That means it allows some selective substance inside it. It is a living membrane and has a high degenerated capacity. Let's talk about the composition of the plasma membrane. A bilayer of lipid and proteins along with some carbohydrate molecules that are present at the surface of the bilayer. These are the hydrophilic head of the lipid, which are facing outside of the plasma membrane. These are the hydrophobic tail of the lipid. These are facing the inside of the plasma membrane. And here the proteins are present. And after the protein, carbohydrates are present. These are carbohydrates. These are protein molecules. And these are lipid bilayer. The lipid molecules are arranged in such a way that the hydrophilic head of the lipid molecule are present at the outer surface of the plasma membrane and the hydrophobic tail are present towards the inner side of the plasma membrane. The lipid molecules present in the plasma membrane are of two types, that is cholesterol and phospholipid. Whereas the protein molecules are present, that is also two types, that is extrinsic protein and intrinsic protein. The intrinsic protein are completely or partially embedded within the lipid bilayer, while the extrinsic proteins are present in the outside layer of the lipid. And the carbohydrate present, that is fucose, sialic acid, hexamine and hexoses. In human cell, protein accounts for about 50% of the plasma membrane. Lipid accounts for 40% of the plasma membrane, and remaining 10% is carbohydrates. Talk about the functions of the plasma membrane. As the plasma membrane is the outer covering of the cell, it is a protective in nature and it also determines the shape of the cell, and it's also responsible for the determination of solute which can enter and exist of the cell. In my previous video, I also told that there is another layer that is called cell wall is present in some organisms. Unlike the plasma membrane, it is a living in nature and it is rigid and dead. That means it lacks the regeneration capacity and it is freely permeable. It means it allows all the substances inside it. The composition of cell wall is varies from organism to organism. Like in plants, the cell wall is made up of cellulose, whereas in fungi it is made up of chitin. But the plasma membrane is made up of only protein, lipid and carbohydrates. And it is the definite composition. Let's summarize everything. The plasma membrane is outer covering layer and it is flexible and selectively permeable membrane, and it is made up of proteins, lipids and carbohydrate. In some other organism, it is covered with cell wall. So this is all about the plasma membrane. Let's move on to the second part, that is nucleus. Nucleus is an oval or spherical structure present inside the cell. It was first discovered by the botanist Robert Brown. It is also known as the director of the cell because it is responsible for controlling all the cellular activities. It is the largest cellular structure known. Talking about the composition of the nucleus is consist of 80% protein, 12% DNA, 5% RNA and 3% of lipids. It has four major components, that is nuclear membrane, nucleolus, nucleoplasm and chromatin material. Nuclear membrane is also known as nuclear envelope and it is consist of outer nuclear membrane and inner nuclear membrane. These membrane are discontinuous in structure and having pores. These pores are known as nuclear pore and it is responsible for the exchange of material across the nuclear membrane. Next we come to the nucleolus. The nucleolus is an unknown membrane bound structure and it is consist of proteins and RNAs and it is the site of ribosome synthesis, and the ribosomes are helps in the protein synthesis in the cytoplasm. Next come to the nucleoplasm. Nucleoplasm is a sap-like structure and it is present inside the nucleus and it is consist of some nucleotides and certain enzymes. Last component is the chromatin material. The chromatin material is network of thread-like structure. During the cell division, this chromatin material becomes thick and condensed and forming the chromosome. And the chromosome is consist of DNA and protein. Functions of the nucleus. Nucleus controls all the cellular activities of the cell. That's why it is known as the director of the cell. And nucleus is responsible for the synthesis of the protein. And nucleus contains the genetic material and it transfers the genetic information from one generation to another generation. This is all about the nucleus. Then move on to the cytoplasm. Cytoplasm is the protoplasmic content of the cell within the plasma membrane excluding the nucleus. So this region of the cell is known as cytoplasm. And it is consist of two parts, that is cytosol and second one is the cell organelle. The fluid part of the cytoplasm is known as cytosol and it is consist of various ions, proteins, lipids, enzymes and amino acids. And then the cell organelles. Cell organelles is the submicroscopic structure present inside the cytoplasm. Cytoplasm is the site for synthesis of various biochemical processes like glycolysis, and it is responsible for exchange of materials between the different cell organelles, and it helps in the protein synthesis. This is all about today's class. In my next video, I will be explaining different cell organelles. Until then, please supporting my channel by subscribing and sharing this video, and thanks for watching.